Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Meepleville Meets. Today, we are privileged to have the president, publisher, and founder of Renegade Game Studios, Scott Gaeta. Well, hello, Scott. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, Renegade Games is a juggernaut in the gaming industry, and I have a lot of stuff I'd like to get to about a board game company because I really want to try to sort of pick your brain and to sort of be a resource to the viewers out there about how a game company works, its operations, and any of the questions we might have as gamers. But I know you've had a long history in the gaming industry to get where you are today. So I'd like to kind of start out with that. But just a little bit before we begin, just a little bit about you and so where did you grow up?
So I was born in New Jersey, and then in my tween years, I guess my family moved to Florida. So I grew up in South Florida, spent a lot of time there, and then eventually moved out west. And I bounced around a little bit for different jobs, different companies that I worked at. But now I'm in California. That's where I wound up early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So as you were growing up and stuff, and say after you got out of high school, was there anything in particular? I don't know if you went to college or, how many degrees or what you studied, but was there anything that your life was sort of headed towards?
Well, so I did go off to school, and my plan was, kind of a boring business administration major. And what happened when I was in school was I started doing comic book conventions on the weekends. So, I was living in a college town, and college towns, 35,000 students in town. So jobs are scarce, and nobody pays very well because there's an infinite supply of desperate students. So a friend of mine had shown me a flyer at the local comic store, because I would go down to the shop every week and stuff that was right near campus, and said, hey, there's a comic book convention at the Holiday Inn right on the corner across the street from the university. Do you want to split a table? So we split a $50 table to sell extra comics from our collection. And I think I made like $500. And I was like, this is going to be my job. This is what I'm going to do. And I started doing comic book conventions on the weekend, and eventually grew that pretty quickly. I bought a store's inventory out that went out of business when I was in school, and we were doing conventions on the weekends and stuff like that, and it eventually just kind of snowballed from there. So that was probably the biggest thing I got out of my college experience. Was it started me on the path to I could actually make money with something that I loved.
Right.
And I didn't have to go, get some generic business degree and go to work for some generic company that, makes widgets. I could actually make a living in the pop culture world, is the thing that I always loved. So
right, and that's an interesting point. I don't know if you can sort of answer this question, but because again, so you were determined to be on a certain path. You said you wanted to get into business administration. You were going to school for this, but then you got into this and you started making money, and you're like, oh, this is the direction I'm going. So, do you feel that? It's one of those, I don't know, questions that, people are asking about the answer, that it found you, or did you find it, like serendipity? How do you feel about how your life went to sort of steer you into your passion like that?
Yeah, I don't know. It is a little bit of a chicken and the egg, and it's hard to determine what exactly came first. I definitely grew up in a very entrepreneurial environment. So that was always going to be part of what I did, and it always was, really, even moving forward, whether I worked for somebody else or worked for myself. I always have approached it from an entrepreneurial viewpoint. So I don't know. I do think it was just more of like that light bulb that went off, where it's like, oh, I don't have to just get a job and work for like Procter and Gamble or something and make toilet paper to be in business. I can be in business with the thing that was my hobby. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I grew up playing D&D and reading comic books. That was essentially my childhood, right? Like, was D&D and comic books.
Right, but because and I'm just wondering, because you said you made money, so you're like, oh, wow, this is a way to make money. Was it still the passion driving you, or was it the financial?
I mean, it was both. Like it really was. I mean, one of the worst things in the world, like especially with things like that are collectibles, like comic books.
Mhm.
One of the worst things in the world is when you are making your living and paying your rent from the thing you love as well. Like it's on one hand it's great, but on the other hand, you buy a collection and oh wow, I got an Avengers one in there. I would kind of like to keep that Avengers one, but it's but it's also my business, so I should probably sell the Avengers one because like I have rent and a car payment and food is usually good too. So
Right.
so there is that give and take, and I would say that both drove me. I like business. I do like building things. I like, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective. I can get excited about starting a new business and a new venture almost no matter what it is. So like I kind of I kind of put down like generic things. Like I'll say a lot in these discussions, like, I could have worked for Procter and Gamble. That would have sucked. I probably could have found a way to get really excited about those things because I most likely would have approached whatever I was assigned to do and wanted to change it and iterate on it and grow it. So that really excites me. Like what can we do? What's the next step? What can we do to take this a step further and make it more than what it is today? Like that excites me. So, but getting to do it with the things that I also love in my spare time is like,
Well, of course, that's fantastic. Well, so that's good because I really want people to know because again, I don't know your whole story, and I'm hoping to find out a lot more today. But I do know, I don't know even quite a bit, but I do know some of it. So I really want people to get an appreciation for how long you've been in the industry and the hard work and dedication you've put into it. So I really don't want to leave anything out to, so to illustrate how much hard work and time it takes. So let's get back to the point where you bought the inventory from the store and you went on from there. So what does going on from there mean?
So I bought that inventory and it was like a couple 26 foot U-Haul trucks or Penske trucks, whatever they were, that we went and rented. And I gathered up a bunch of friends and we filled them up with stuff. And I went and rented storage units. And then from there, it kind of like, that was the leap, right? From buying some collections here and there. I used to advertise in the school paper that I would buy collections to actually having like pretty considerable amount of inventory, like 300 long boxes or something is what I think I bought. And I went and I also inherited a bunch of stuff I bought a bunch of stuff in that deal that I didn't really care about, right? Like it was a comic shop that didn't just sell back issues, of course. They sold t-shirts and portfolios and stuff like that. And to me, that stuff was like, bleh, like whatever, a bunch of t-shirts. Like, I mean, it's cool. I'll wear a Captain American t-shirt, but that's not what I want to sell. So I loaded all that stuff up in a van and we drove all around Florida and I wholesaled it to all the stores to make back my money for the purchase that I made. So that kind of started the ball rolling. I did work for other companies at the time, like not in our industry, during those years as well, but I always had stuff on the side. So I was a regular advertiser in things like Comic Buyer's Guide and Toy Shop Magazine because I also love posters, movie posters, toys and that sort of thing. So I just started buying more stuff and selling through different avenues. Like, through one of my toy shop ads, I met Steve Sansweet back in the 90s. Like that's how, like when I first met him. And then I would run into him later on when I worked at Decipher, because Decipher made the Star Wars CCG, and those things like that. So it just kind of, the snowball just started rolling down the hill.
Okay, and then what would have been then your first sort of foray or your entree into the gaming industry, for lack of a better term?
Sure.
What would that have been?
So gaming came a little later. I was really focused on movie posters and comics and toys and all that sort of stuff. And then in the mid 90s, I was working a job first for another company. It was a chain of stores, and I was kind of doing that, and that really burnt me out. I was opening up lots of new stores and part of that team and stuff, and it really kind of burnt me out, and I was kind of tired of it. And I made the decision. I said, you know what, I'm going to do this full time. And I started off just doing mail order, and then I was going to open up a store. And I opened up my very first store, and it was mostly comic books and toys. And I really, hadn't been involved in gaming since I was younger, playing D&D, and Magic had just come out a few years prior to that, right? And I had experienced Magic, and Magic was really cool. But then I opened up my store, and a bunch of people started coming in and asking for games. And they were asking for Magic, and they were also asking for Star Wars collectible card game. It had just come out. And that was a big part of it, was Star Wars collectible card games, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So I said, of course we can carry that stuff. So I started ordering in Magic and Star Wars and D&D and other stuff. And then Pokemon hit a couple years later. But Star Wars was what really, because I was also passionate about it. And it was really a pretty healthy competitor to Magic at the time. Like, people don't realize how big that game was compared to Magic. They were kind of neck and neck there for a while as far as sales and fan base. Yeah, I mean, it was huge, and it got me on the radar of Decipher, which eventually hired me, and I went to work for Decipher. So that was kind of the path.
Okay. So real quick, and this is something, I guess, for me, because I just don't understand, because I do have a board game cafe and I do have retail sale of games and stuff. I'm not in the comic book world, have never been in the comic book world, but I see comic book stores and I always wonder, how do they make money? I'm just wondering, like, because I just don't, are there that many people who like still buy comics, or is it just the collectibles? So if you could, maybe in a nutshell, how do comic stores make money?
Yeah, I mean, new comics for sure are a big driver, right? Like, that's what gets people into the store every week. I can tell you there was two stores in Gainesville, Florida, when I was living there. And one store was small, and that's actually the store that went out of business, and I bought all their inventory. Another store was massive. I mean, big store. They actually carried lots of sci-fi and fantasy books, was huge. And their pull list was incredible. They would have 10, 15 employees in there on New Comic Book Day doing all the polls. They had hundreds of subscribers, and that was a big base of their business, right? Comic book fans want every issue of the series that they're reading, so they reserve them at the store. And that gives them a nice foundation. It's almost, it's like this nice pre-order business. People come in, pick up their stuff. So it gives them a foundation. And then, of course, back issues, back when I was involved, back issues were still huge. It's really interesting how back issues have kind of gone away in a lot of comic book stores. A lot of comic book stores have moved away from back issues as the market has moved more towards graphic novels and trade paperbacks, which, if you look behind me, that's my shelves are filled with hardcovers and softcover comics, right?
There's a big margin there, because again, I've never been into it, but I just remember back when a comic was like, what, 15 cents or 30 cents? I mean, like, where's the margin? Is there a lot of money to be made off a single comic now?
Well, I mean, it's similar to games, right? Like, you're buying from a distributor at pretty much the same types of discounts. Actually, I think on the comic book side, the discounts can be even greater than games.
Yeah, but what's the price point? Like because like a game, yeah, because you may be selling, say, a $50 game,
right,
and you have, but like, how much are comic books?
Right. Yeah, I think the standard comic book price now is about $4 for a weekly, for a floppy. So yeah, you're right. Like, the per unit price is much lower, but it's volume, Tim. They make it up in volume. I don't know. It's been a long time. Right. They do. Like, the print runs for a healthy, I think Batman is now the industry standard. Batman is 100,000 to 200,000 copies of an issue.
Wow.
Right. So I think you have to kind of look at it differently, where a board game customer comes in and buys a $40 board game in one shot, but a Batman fan or a Spider-Man fan might buy a monthly issue every month for $4. So they're spending $48 a year on that title, but most comic book readers don't just read one title. Most comic book readers read 10 titles or more. So they're probably spending in their store the equivalent of a board gamer that buys one board game a month.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting, yeah, because when you're not in something, right, you just have no idea about it. Just like our industry. I have people walk in all the time and they're like, you literally own every game in the world. And I'm like, yeah, you really have no idea, right?
Right.
Okay, so now you're with Decipher, and that was your first sort of job, I guess, right? Working for a board game company or in this industry. So what did you do for them?
Yeah, so I started off at first as a contractor for them, working remotely, helping with with organized play and marketing programs. So at first it started off just like non-paid, very casual. They would call me up and go, hey, we're thinking of doing this. What do you think? Right? Like I was one of those kind of alpha stores in their world that would help them out. Then eventually I was hired on as a regular contractor. I actually was asked to come up with a way to revamp and kind of reconfigure their organized play for Lord of the Rings was coming. So I flew out there and kind of pitched them on some new ideas and stuff like that. And then they put me on as a regular running that with Dan Bojanowski, who actually works at Renegade now. So, and we've been at several companies together over the years. So I did that. And then eventually I was hired and I made the move. I sold my store and I had a mail order poster company. I sold both of those things and I moved to Virginia Beach and wound up working at Decipher. So that was really cool.
Oh, okay. And what exactly, because I'm not too familiar with Decipher, what is their sort of core or main products?
So Decipher nowadays is not active in the hobby game market. Back in the day, they were actually pretty huge. They started off, they actually have a really interesting start. So Warren Holland, who founded Decipher and owned Decipher, his very first product was a puzzle called the Decipher puzzle. Okay. And he put out this puzzle and it was based on cracking codes. It wasn't a puzzle like a flowers, it was a puzzle with numbers on it. And you had to put the puzzle together, then literally decipher the codes on the puzzle. And the hook was, this is pre-internet. So this was back in the early 80s, before my time with the company. But the hook was that you had to decipher the codes using the clues that came with the puzzle. And the first person to decipher the puzzle and get all the answers would win $10,000.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I think it was that he sold like 1 million units. He did all the, he was on like Good Morning America and made all the PR rounds and stuff like that. And they wound up doing 3 of them. And then their next big product was a product called How to Host a Murder Mystery in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So How to Host a Murder Mystery was actually credited for creating the LARP. Right, it was kind of the precursor to the LARP. It was definitely much more scripted and a little bit more on rails than what LARPs evolved to become. But it was a live action role play experience where people would get together and have a dinner party and solve a murder mystery.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Yep. All right. So then, where did you go from Decipher?
So from Decipher, I was recruited by Upper Deck in California, and I actually had an offer from another West Coast company, or not an offer. Actually, no, they passed. They didn't hire me at first. They came back later and offered me something after I had accepted the Upper Deck offer. But I was interviewing at these 2 companies on the West Coast. And to be honest, I really did want to do the Upper Deck one anyway, because it got me to California. And that was always my goal. My first time at San Diego Comic-Con was in 1992. And I remember coming back. It was my first time in San Diego, actually, ever. As I had a booth there. And I came back and said, you know what, San Diego, I love San Diego. I really want to wind up living there. And Upper Deck's in San Diego. They're in Carlsbad in North County. So it kind of worked out.
Oh, okay. And then what were you doing for Upper Deck?
So at Upper Deck, my first role at Upper Deck was I was hired to be the Versus System brand manager. I did that for a while. And then I eventually moved up and I wound up running entertainment there. So I ran the game group.
Okay. And how long were you at Upper Deck for?
Just under 5 years. So,
okay. And then from Upper Deck, where did you go next?
So from Upper Deck, I left Upper Deck and I started a company. I was one of four owners, and I started Cryptozoic Entertainment with John Nee, Corey Jones, and John Sepanuk. So the 4 of us were all equal partners. We started that company, and it was really kind of the evolution of World of Warcraft trading card game is how it started. World of Warcraft trading card game was at Upper Deck. Upper Deck fell on some hard times and kind of went through some changes. And for various reasons, Blizzard decided that they were not going to renew their license. And things were changing quickly at Upper Decks, and I left, and then we started this company, and Blizzard awarded us the World of Warcraft trading card game license, and we continued that game for the fans for 3 more years. And that was really the basis of it. And then, we also expanded into board games, and I expanded the company into trading cards because that was a previous passion of mine from decades ago. I grew up buying top Star Wars cards, and I love non-sport cards, sports cards too, but non-sport actually way more. And we expanded into trading cards. So again, I got to take things that I love personally and I collect and make them my job.
Right. But I'm interested to know, was again, so this is sort of like a chicken and an egg question, right? Was the impetus to start Cryptozoic because you saw an opportunity there with the World of Warcraft card game, or were you interested in, again, maybe just personal progression to start a company anyway?
Yeah, it was both. I mean, right, I had owned a poster business and a company, a mail order business in the 90s, and a store. And, that's fun, creating something new from scratch. So starting Cryptozoic was very exciting. It was it was a ton of fun. And yeah, there was an opportunity. Blizzard decided they wanted to make a change. And, we were told that lots of other companies in the industry were pitching for that license. And we had a very compelling case. Things were changing, like I said, at Upper Deck. There was huge layoffs, and we were able to say, listen, all these people are going to be laid off that made this game previously and made it what it is today. We can just rehire them all and continue, so you'll have continuity and keep things going for the fans and for Blizzard. And Blizzard said, yeah, that sounds good. So they gave us the license and really helped put us in business. If it wasn't for them, that company wouldn't have come to be. So,
all right, and so this is one of the questions I had a little bit later for you, but I guess we can sort of talk about it now with Renegade Games, because you told me with Cryptozoic you started out as a trading card game company, right, with the World of Warcraft. That was your initial thing, and then you branched out. So how does the decision come with a game company? And sorry, folks, my cat is waking up, so she is out there. Where you go from singular to multi. And I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about, where singular focus is the card game industry, perhaps even just a product or a line, to having multiple products, which include board games. So what are some of the decisions to decide to do that?
Well, I mean, so part of it is, doing the same thing, only one thing is, gets a little boring. And I think, Cryptozoic, we were all very creative people, and we have lots of different passions and things that we want to do. And we also see opportunity in the market, right? You look at the market and go, we can do that. We can do that better. We're really good at this, and we can apply it to that. So I think there's opportunity, and also maybe a little bit of ADHD too. We want to do new things. So it's a combination. I mean, getting into trading cards, non-sport cards at Cryptozoic was, I wanted to grow the company. I wanted to grow our revenue. But I also saw a gap in the market. Around that time, non-sport trading cards were really kind of at a low point. There wasn't a lot of people producing them. Topps was not really, they were producing them, but not a lot. Upper Deck was barely doing anything in non-sport at the time. And there were some other players, Rittenhouse Archives doing Star Trek and stuff like that. But there wasn't a lot going on. And we also had access. We had really good licensing relationships with Warner Brothers. And there was nothing being done with their properties. And they had a bad experience previously in the trading card space. And I was able to go in there and say, listen, this is how we'll do it differently. This is what these products mean to your fans. And we also understand that these products are a lot of work for your teams. And here's how we're going to address those issues to make it, where trading card is kind of this niche fan service product, and it's sometimes from a licensor standpoint, not worth the time, honestly, right? And I get it. It's a lot of work that we're, a lot of things that we're asking for. We're kind of a high maintenance product. But they went for it and they believed in it. It was actually, I'll give credit, it was Lisa Gregorian, who is now the chief marketing officer at Warner Brothers Global, I think. She had the vision to say, yeah, these are worth it. We get it. The way non-sport trading cards connect with the fans really is powerful, and it's important. And that's important to us because we have, all these strong brands. So all overnight we were making trading cards for like Vampire Diaries and Fringe and Big Bang Theory and all of that. And we had the expertise there because we had so many people at the company that had trading card experience prior, whether it was sport or non-sport, didn't really matter. We knew how to make cards and really good, high quality stuff. So that's a perfect example of, it was, again, like everything in my life, I've kind of been blessed. It's the best of both worlds. I get to grow a business and grow revenue and do it with something that's fun and that I love.
Right. No, true, but it's one of those kind of things because I still, I don't want to like lose our place and everything with the crypto, but it was sort of bleeding into your company now, Renegade Game Studios, because I was just wondering about the, with the old the expressions of a jack of all trades, master of none, or this or that. And what I mean is, like, for example, when we talk about, say, a GMT game, for those of you not in the industry, GMT sort of specializes in sort of war, historical, that kind. But for those of us in the industry, if we were talking about GMT game, it automatically sort of conjures an idea of what the game is, right? So that's sort of my question with that. And you can maybe talk a little bit about Renegade, don't get too much, but that's what I'm just wondering is how you make the decision to go from multi to singular so the industry doesn't know you as being sort of the best or the masters at a certain type.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I don't think that that's an invalid model at all. If you want to be the world's best war game company, then by all means do it. I don't think that's an invalid thing, but I do think that the jack of all trades, master of none concept does not apply to businesses. Businesses aren't individuals. It's not one individual. It's made up of many individuals, and you can have many experts in their field that can contribute and do things. So, so if we're talking about Cryptozoic right now specifically, we had many people that knew Cryptozoic as a trading card company and loved them as a trading card company because we put out, frankly, fantastic stuff, and in some things that were very disruptive and that other people then copied. But then we had people that knew us as the World of Warcraft trading card game company. And that was the thing that they loved and the way they related to us. And then other people that is the DC deck building game company. So, that concept, it's limiting. And I think it's a fallacy. I don't think it applies. Now, if you're a one-man show, it certainly applies. Not everybody can wear every hat and not everybody can be an expert at everything. But part of the secret is to bring in people that are experts in their specific niche areas. You could look at a car company. Do you want to be the compact car company, or do you also want to sell trucks? Why not? Bring in people that know how to sell trucks and how to make awesome trucks. So I don't. Yeah, I really am not a believer in that at all. I think it's limiting. Now, like I said, if you're a one-man show, you've got to pick and choose your battles.
Right.
But if you can grow and bring in people and expand your team, the danger is overextending. You don't want to overextend, and that can be a minefield. So it's something you need to obviously look out for. So that's at least been my philosophy. And like I said, it's probably partially fueled by, I want to do new and exciting things too. So
no, absolutely, and I get it. And again, I guess there could be arguments or discussions on both sides because just sometimes you're just wondering, like when you see say XYZ company all of a sudden come out with this game, and you're like, wait, that's not what they've done before, and you're wondering, you have maybe doubts because you're like, do they really know that type of game? Because that's not what they do, So it's just and again, that's probably just for us. Gamers, right, who think things like that.
No, I run into people all the time that don't have a clue about a whole other type of game that we make, right? Like they know us from one type of like family games, light games, and then they'll go, oh, I didn't know that you guys made higher end 2-hour Euros. And it's like, yeah, we do those too. But if that's something that you want to check out, we've got one for you, or two or three. So
right, okay. So, and how long did you have Cryptozoic? or were you part of the company?
So I was there for 4.5 years or so, and it was great, but it also, you know, the company was up in Orange County. We opened it up very close to Blizzard, which made sense at the time for sure, because we were basically, that was our focus. Mm-hmm. I live in San Diego. I wasn't going to leave San Diego. Not a big Orange County fan. Sorry, Orange County. So, and I was, it takes its toll. I was driving back and forth. I was actually living up there most weeks. I would drive up Monday morning and drive home Thursday night and work from home on Fridays for years. I did that for years because, especially in a startup, I was at the office until midnight almost every night for the first 2 years. And just doing everything. That's part of the cost of wanting to do more. Could have just sat back and did one thing, and it would have been easier for sure, and I would have worked less hours.
Right.
So the trade-off is, folks, if you say like, hey, I want to do that and I want to do lots of projects, you're gonna trade time for it. You can't do it all in the same amount of time. So that's the thing that you can't make more of, and you will eat up all of it.
Right. So, yeah, absolutely. So now, was Renegade Game Studios directly after Cryptozoic?
Yeah. So I decided.
Because I just wanted to ask you a question real quick, and I don't need to get into numbers or any of that kind of stuff, but again, just for information, because this happens a lot in the gaming industry. So personally, I'd like to know, and hopefully other people are wondering as well. So when you start a company like Cryptozoic and then you leave, do you have is it like sort of a clean cut? You get paid, you're done forever, or is it like a game designer where you still have rights to maybe something and you still get residual or royalty checks, or is it just like a clean cut?
Right. So this was more about ownership than something than royalties. It's not a royalty situation. So I sold most of my equity in Cryptozoic. I still actually own a small piece. And it was a clean cut. And basically I left, said I wanted to go do something new. Sold the majority of my equity to my former partners, and they're still doing their thing and doing well, but it was a clean cut. So then I said I was going to start Renegade, and a big part of it too was most of my career I had spent doing licensed games, right? Which I love pop culture. But it's also different. You're playing in somebody else's sandbox, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time creating my own sandboxes and working with game designers and artists to create things from scratch where we could kind of do whatever we wanted. So that's the way Renegade started, and I knew that wasn't going to be forever.
Right.
Again, but I wanted to spend a couple years focusing on that, and that was probably the best way for me to do it.
Okay. So let me ask you then. So what were some of the conversations that Scott had with Scott when you're leaving Cryptozoic and you want to, make a better widget, or you have these ideas, like you said, there were certain things you want to do. What was sort of maybe your 1, 2, 3 or ABC things that you wanted to accomplish to make Renegade Game Studios different, or was going to be how you were going to introduce Renegade Game Studios to the world? Okay.
So I would say first, before even a product. So I did actually inherit a few products as part of my departure from my deal with my partners at Cryptozoic. We had a game called Gravwell, for instance, that was an original IP game that I took with me because I had signed that game and I believed in it, and it didn't really fit the catalog. We were so licensed heavy that it would kind of get lost. So I brought that with me. So I did have a product.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I was wondering, because when I asked about residuals or anything, if there's anything you kind of take with you, if it's a clean cut, so you actually were able to take some things that you said that you signed with you.
Yeah, I took three projects with me. I took Gravwell, which was already out in the market and had just won a Mensa Select Award. I took with me a game called The Doom That Came to Atlantic City, which was you may have heard of, there was this whole drama behind it where the original person, so it was a Lee Moyer and Keith Baker game, and they had licensed it to somebody, and the guy ran a Kickstarter and ran off with the money and never delivered the game. And when I was at Cryptozoic, I had stepped in, I saw the news, and I got in touch with Keith and said, hey, maybe there's something we could do here to try to make this better. And what we wound up doing was we acquired the rights. We tracked down the files and stuff because the guy that kind of skipped town wasn't being very helpful. And we wound up producing the game, and we gave a free copy to all the backers, and then we sold the game. And, we made a little bit of money, broke even on it. But I took that game with me. And then I took another game that was not published yet called Double Feature that we had signed, and it was a John Kovalic game. And that came with me. So those were the first 3 Renegade products. So we had a little bit of a head start. Okay.
And then out of that, what did you feel was going to be the Renegade identity?
Okay. So to start with, my answer to this question of what kind of games does Renegade make has always been the same. I never say a genre of game. I just say good games, because I never wanted to be pigeonholed and like what you were saying earlier and be like, we're only the war game company, we're only the deck building game company, or whatever it is. But to start, my strategy was I wanted to make what most people in our industry would call gateway games, because the industry was booming. We were growing rapidly. People were finally discovering that tabletop games were fun, and they weren't just, the games that you grew up with, Game of Life and Monopoly and all those games. That there were games that you could play as adults and still have fun, and it wasn't just all that stuff that we kind of grew up with and we're used to. That there was this wide world of games, and it was really growing. We were becoming more mainstream, similar to what we've seen in Europe for a long time. So strategically, I said I want to make entry-level games, gateway games, accessible games that play in 40 minutes or less, price points that are $35 and under. Because that's where all the growth was, and that's where all the acquisition was for new people coming in, instead of fighting for the same person that's buying a heavy Euro that is already, there's a ton of them on the market, and there's a lot of really good ones.
Right. So what year was that then you started Renegade Game Studios?
2014.
Okay. So my question now is, again, 2014, obviously you've been in the gaming industry and stuff for a while, and you've seen the growth, and then you've seen the growth of, like, say, the larger events like Gen Con and stuff. So was it more of you saw an opening in the opportunity, an opportunity in the field, or was it more confidence in just you yourself, where you were like, wow, okay, I know I can do this and make this a success? Because again, there are dozens, hundreds or whatever of successful board game companies, and is another one, is it going to be easy or whatever? So was it more the opportunity or more Scott?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you look at the market and you go, yeah, there's a lot of people making stuff, but so my background is kind of varied. Like I've been lucky that I've been able to work in a lot of different kind of areas of the industry. Sales, marketing, and product development are probably the 3 primary ones. And then I had got a lot of experience and exposure to working on the finance side, having to run things. You have to wear a lot of different hats and doing startups. And I think I looked at the industry and said, yeah, there's a lot of companies out there, but I think that there's opportunity. Marketing isn't always the best. Sales efforts are okay. Everybody's trying to wear too many hats. And like when you originally started this line of questions, the very first thing that I thought of when starting Renegade, before even thinking specifically about product, was about the people. So again, kind of going full circle back to your original question, is I knew I couldn't do it all myself forever. I could start it and I could wear a lot of different hats to start, but that wouldn't be sustainable. And that I would have to bring in other people that were just as good as me, if not better, in those areas, right? Because that's the only way we're going to grow and also be competitive. Because I do think that's part of the weakness in our industry, is that a lot of people fall into the trap and they start a startup and it's a one-man show, maybe 2, and there's only so many things you can do with so many hours in the day, and there's only so many things that we can all do very, very well. We can all do most things decently, but when you start wanting to do things exceptionally, that's where you have to start branching out, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to interrupt you real quick because, again, with your varied experience, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we covered all of this stuff. And I just want people to understand that what Scott's saying right now is, yes, it is very tough by yourself at being a 1 or 2 person operation, but you had the experience, you had the know-how, you had tentacles throughout the industry, and you had that knowledge to know, like you're talking about right now, the kind of things you know you need to succeed to make it a success, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had a big head start for sure, based on all my previous experience and relationships. You know, so 2014, I went to Gen Con, didn't have a booth for Renegade, and all I did was meetings. And my meetings were mostly either with designers or on the business side. So I met with all the distributors that I was going to work with. And I said, hey, I'm starting a new game company. This is what we're going to do. Can I sell to you direct? I don't want to go through a consolidator. I want to have a direct relationship like I've always had with you. And every single one of them said, yeah, great. Sounds good. Let's do it. Because I wanted to be able to control that relationship and the messaging, because I understand how important the sales piece of it is, and that the distributors are my partner to service retail stores. And being small and a one-man show, I need my distributors servicing those retail stores to be as strong as possible, because, right, it's a numbers game. I can't be in touch with 1,000 retail stores, but my distributors can, but I can be in touch with 3 distributors. So that's the way I spent my first Gen Con, right? So it gave me a head start. Where lots of new people starting up as a small publisher, you're not going to be able to quickly turn on Alliance and ACD and all those other distributors, right? Like, without a product, I could do it based on my reputation and relationships.
Right.
So it's a bit of a cheat.
Okay. So now I hope I can get through everything, because this is going fantastic. What I'd like you to do, if you could, is sort of give us a timeline. All right. I'm Tim. I've got a game. Mm-hmm. I show it to you, a prototype. You're like, yes, I like it. We want it. Boom. From that point, Scott, do us a favor, and can you kind of walk us through all the way from that point to a game getting on the shelf in shrink wrap?
Okay. So if I sign your game and like it, depending on where it's at, let's say that it's most game designers nowadays have done a fair amount of development, and their games are pretty close. Let's say 80%. So the first thing would be is we'd take care of the paperwork, the not fun part, and get a contract done and make sure everybody's happy and everybody's covered. That way there's no misunderstandings and everything's spelled out on paper, and we're off to the races.
Okay. So real quick then, yep. What is sort of an industry range or standard with, like, say, percentage of residual? If you could just talk a little bit about on this step,
sure.
What a designer can expect, or what are some of the things you may offer them as far as compensation from your company?
Sure. So royalty rates will vary. I would say the industry averages are 5 to 10% royalties on sales, and sales should just to be defined as gross sales, minus any discounts and shipping and et cetera. So it's essentially real sales.
Right. But real quick, let's make sure we define that. Now, that is sales from you to the distributor, not me as the store owner.
No. Right. Okay. Exactly. It's just Renegade sales, or any company sales, whoever we're selling to, whether it's a distributor, right, or maybe, sales at a trade show or whatever else, but it's whatever the real sales are. We can't take money out of Tim's store's pocket. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm glad you're not. Yeah. I need every penny.
All right. Yeah, we're not the video rental business. That's the way.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we get the contract done. We get that going. Sometimes for some designers, we do advances on royalties that are recoupable, but it gives you some money up front. Others not. And really, I always tell designers, what you can get will grow as your reputation and your track record grows. We try not to treat anybody like, hey, this is your first game, so we're going to take advantage of you. Like, we don't want to do that. So we try to treat everybody fairly. So contract done. Now we're off to the races. So Alicia, internally at our company, will plug your game into a schedule depending on what the components are. Are we doing wood? Are we doing dice? Are we doing plastics? Punch boards, paper, cards, what kind of boxes do we want, and all that. And that will determine our timeline.
Okay, now, another kind of question here.
Yep.
So Alicia, maybe this is part of her job. Do you now all of a sudden become partners with, say, a company like, and only because it's the only one I can think of offhand that I know of, say, Panda, who takes care of all that stuff, or do you do all that stuff when you're talking about her job in this deciding components?
So for that specifically, we do all that stuff. So Panda's really good because Panda kind of gives you Alicia. They give you a project manager that understands manufacturing, but we have that internally. So we don't work through a broker. We work directly with our factories that we manufacture with. So the communication is direct. We actually visit our factories and all that. So she does that part, and then we start plugging them into what we do internally, right? So the game probably needs to go through some development work. So we'll go through development. It might be internal people that we have on staff or contractors that we bring in. We also have a playtest network set up where we'll put out games to playtesters. And depending on how complex and simple the game is based on gameplay and components, if it's a simple card game, that's easy to do print and plays, and we can get hundreds of games played because we have several hundred people in our playtest network in our pool. So it'll go through all that development. Now, in parallel, while development is going on, we may start to do things like write art descriptions and put together art budgets. And, Dan Bojanowski, who's one of our senior producers, will start to create a Pnl. And we'll put that together and start to create.
People like me, what's Pnl mean?
So it's a profit and loss statement, right? Okay. For us at this stage, it's a worksheet. And that worksheet it's a living document that we are basically plugging in our costs and our royalty rates and shipping estimates and art costs and all of that and our sales forecasts for this, and seeing, will it make money and what margin will it make? And we have some minimum margin thresholds that we need to hit as a company or hit without, with some few exceptions, because if the product doesn't generate at least so much margin, it's an opportunity cost where we could put a product in that slot that would generate that, because that's what we need to be a healthy business.
Right. Okay. Now, I think like this next question is still part of the step you're talking about in this whole process. What you talked about play testing and all that kind of stuff. At what point? So this is kind of a two-part question. At what point is it decided that the prototype or whatever you received from the designer is going to either be like they want it to be or not? Maybe you put a whole new skin on it. And the B part of that is, whose final decision is that? Is that yours, or how does that work? And I guess sort of another kind of side question, is that a heartbreaking conversation sometimes with a designer where you're like, hey, you gave us this and now it's going to be that?
So our style is to work very collaboratively with the designer. So they're involved in that whole process. They're involved in the development process, and a lot of times they're involved in everything, in the art selection and art styles and art descriptions and all that. So they're part of the team. Ultimately, we try to make decisions collaboratively. I honestly can't think of any time where we had to say, like, we're making this change even though you hate it. I don't think we've ever done that. Maybe we did and nobody told us. But it's generally a consensus building process, and we say, listen, we think that we need to do this or that, and it's kind of a process of discovery, and to get to the point where we've got the gameplay where we all are happy with it. So to answer your question, like, ultimately, I guess contractually we have the final say because we're the ones putting the game out and putting the money behind it and taking the risk. But in practical terms, it's more of a organic process.
Okay, so then at the beginning, then when you see that prototype, whoever makes that decision, and I'm sure it's been you at several points. Do you see that going to the end, or do you sometimes say, "Wow, I could see this on that"?
Yeah, so I tell when designers are pitching me things or we're playing through a prototype, I say this a lot. Is I say if I look like I'm zoning out, that's actually not because I'm bored and I'm disinterested. It's because I'm thinking and envisioning what this could look like when we're done with it. So I said that's actually a good sign. If I'm if I'm going to that place, it's like because I see something, I'm kind of picturing what it's going to look like on the shelf, and once it goes through that whole process. Right. I'm usually like kind of doing that quick P&L in my head too, where it's like, that's, if you show me a game that's really light and fun and gateway-ish family type game, should be $20 to $30, but man, it's got $60 MSRP worth of components in it, that's a problem, right? Like we can't sell a $20 game for $60. Like that's not a good product.
Right. Okay. So we've gotten through Alicia. We're at Dan. He's doing the P&L. So where are we in the process now moving forward for there?
So art acquisition's happening. We might be contracting out to different artists. If there's sculpting involved, we're bringing in sculptors to start sculpting the pieces, 3D pieces, or if it's wood design or tray design, and all of that's happening. It's generally happening somewhat in parallel, right? Eventually, we're going to have a few big milestones. We're going to have what I kind of call pencils down for game design, because game designers and developers can go forever and never be happy. And there has to come a time where we're done. Sorry, but if we're never done, we can never launch the thing. Now, that's not to say, it's usually my job to push back on Leisha, who's the keeper of the schedules, and say, back off. We're going to give them more time. We're going to push the schedule. Because if something's not where we want it to be, we're going to take the time to do it. But at some point, there's that milestone. We're done. Lock the file. We need to pass it off to editing and graphic design. And the same thing happens with art and everything else. So once those milestones are hit, there's what we call handoffs. So game design and development is handing off to the next phase. Art and graphic design eventually is handing off to the next phase. And eventually that final phase is sending files for production. And then there's some steps that happen after that, some QA and things like that. But those are the kind of broad strokes.
Okay, and now I know there's no like single answer you can give me for a timeline, but say let me pick say like a Fox in the Forest, which is just a card game, up to, even though it does have tokens, I guess, up to say, Clank Legacy, Acquisitions Incorporated or something. Right. Are there any differences necessarily in timeline with like those two extremes of products?
Yeah, I mean, so Clank Legacy, right? Like Direwolf developed the gameplay in-house. So there's that time that when we're working with a third-party designer that pitches us a game, like that time doesn't directly impact us because that's kind of their own time. But a lot of our stuff internally, especially in recent years, is either what I call assigned games, like where it might not be an IP game, but we go to a designer and say, we want to make a game like this, and we ask them to work with us on it. Or a licensed game, right, where we are doing all the game design in-house internally first, and then the rest of the schedule. So again, in broad strokes, like in general, it takes about 12 months to make a game if it comes to us with about 80% of the game design done. It's about a year, and it could be less. We've had games where it only takes 7 or 8 months. We've had games where it takes 15 months, but in general, around there.
Okay, and then are there ever those instances, because I'm sure you might piss people off who are in your line as far as their job and their company, but are there ever instances where it's like, wow, this game is so great, it's jumping the queue? I mean, does that or does that not happen?
Oh, yeah. It happens, yeah, for sure. So we plan things out. Like we have a schedule through 2022 right now. 2021 is obviously done and locked in. Many of that stuff is off to production already. But that doesn't mean we won't make changes. Opportunities come up, licenses come up, somebody pitches us a game and we're like, we got to get this out. We love it. So yeah, that happens. Leisha doesn't like it when that happens because she's the schedule person.
Right, and that's what I was trying to say. I'm sure you're going to be missing somebody off the line.
Oh yeah.
So here's a question I wanted to ask you, Scott. And again, I'm going to speak from my perspective. And again, it's one of those kind of things, right? If you feel a certain way, there's probably other people's who feel. And I just like to ask your viewpoints from the company. Now, when it comes to Kickstarter, I'm one of those kind of people who I just, I feel the spirit of Kickstarter is for the individual, the small mom and pop, whatever, who don't have the resource, don't have the funds or whatever, need funding to want to go out and produce a game, and they need the sort of support of the community to help them.
Yep.
Then there are board game legitimate companies. I don't know if that's a good term, but you know what I mean, like Renegade or big companies,
more established.
More established. Yeah, that's a better term. Companies like Renegade utilize the platform of Kickstarter. So for somebody like me who may not agree with you doing that, how could you maybe sort of talk to me and tell me why, or what are your reasons? And again, you don't have to satisfy me, but I just want to know what sort of your reasonings or thinkings are behind it and why you may disagree with sort of my view on it.
Right. So I do agree with you that it is that first thing for sure, and I think it will always be that. But so here's a couple different takes on it. Number one, I think that the platform has grown to be such a powerful piece of the tabletop game industry that companies don't have much of a choice. There is a customer base on Kickstarter that buys most of their games from Kickstarter.
That's very valid.
Right? And if you want to sell games to those people, you have to go where they are. It's kind of like Amazon. You might not be a fan of Amazon, but if you don't sell your product on Amazon, you are making a conscious decision to not sell to a certain segment of the population.
Right. Okay.
So it kind of is what it is. Like, that's what happens with these things. They kind of evolve. Now, for us, we didn't use Kickstarter for our first 3 years. We didn't use it to grow our company, but it's a little bit of what I just said. The market evolved to a point where there was so many people there that we felt like we weren't reaching them. But for us, Kickstarter has been more of a marketing tool because on one hand, it does have such a dedicated base, but on the other hand, it's a good platform to reach new people as well. So, right.
No, those are all good points. And then another sort of, naysayer like me coming at you, a question would have, is it valid for me to think, well, of course it's valid because it's what I think, but I mean, that perhaps you don't have enough confidence in a product that you're willing to fund it and go through the whole process yourself, that you're sort of hedging your bets with money from backers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So for us, like when we put something on Kickstarter, we're making it. I mean, we've already put in all the work. So we don't, when we've done Kickstarters, we don't do it in the way where it's like, hey, we kind of have an idea for a product. Let's put it on Kickstarter and see if people will give us money to flesh out that idea and actually make it. Like we've actually, all those things that I talked about previously, like we've already gone through that process. Like it might not all be done. We might be still in, art still might be in progress. Game development might not be pencils down phase yet, but we're already passing along that schedule. And so Power Rangers is a good example. So Power Rangers, 2 things we got out of that. We did that on Kickstarter. So number one, we wanted to reach Power Rangers fans, not just gamers. Okay. And Kickstarter provided us this platform that people know about that might not necessarily even be gamers. So we kind of use that platform as the top of the mountain, like, the destination to drive Power Rangers fans there. Because we did a lot of marketing outside of the game industry just to reach Power Rangers fans because we wanted to tell them about our game. But we also didn't have a direct line to Power Rangers fans. We had Power Rangers experts internally. Our designer, Jonathan Ying, knows Power Rangers inside and out and is like a super fan and also an awesome game designer. So that was a good fit. But ultimately, we wanted to make that product with them. So Kickstarter gave us that platform where we had a game It was in development. It was in that 80% phase. But during the campaign, we allowed them to play the game, play test it. We actually did a Power Rangers convention that was in the middle of the campaign that was in LA with 15,000 Power Rangers fans. And we set up prototypes of the game and let them play. And we made gameplay changes because of that Kickstarter process. We made art changes. We iterated on the game with the community. And ultimately, what we delivered was influenced by that Kickstarter campaign. So it wasn't about the funding as much as it was about the community engagement. And I don't think we would have been able to do it if we just ran that on our website and tried to get people to go to a Facebook group that was starting from scratch.
Right. Okay, good. No. And again, those are great answers, and thank you. And sort of the last thing to, I guess, I don't know, ease my mind about the Kickstarter thing or whatever. I mean, but do you feel that Joe Blow, like me, Tim kickstarting a game and Renegade kickstarting a game, do you feel that the platform of Kickstarter would put us on the same level? Do you know what I mean? Since we have the same audience, because there's really you're not going to get on the front page as opposed to me. It's just a matter of where you show up or how it's funded. So do you feel there is equity in that?
No. So I don't at all, but I don't think there ever was. And here's why. I don't think Kickstarter as a platform does anything to promote your project that's meaningful and that will drive traffic. So if you're on the recommended list, or if they put you on anything, we have never, ever, at least in our experience, seen any uptick in traffic that translates to any meaningful amount of pledges from their marketing. I think their platform has been a great aggregator of people, and because the content that other creative people have put in there, small and big, that's what built the audience for Kickstarter. I don't think Kickstarter throwing out a platform built the audience. Same thing like eBay, right? Like I was one of the very first eBay accounts. I had a .com eBay ID, which was like outlawed a couple years like into eBay. They're like, that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. eBay didn't drive traffic. eBay just was the tool that made auctions for every person that had a computer possible.
Right.
So I do think that I have an advantage over somebody really tiny because I have a better leg up on marketing. It's really hard to be a startup and not anybody know who you are. Like, and that doesn't matter right? If it's Kickstarter or anything, it's hard. You've got to build your brand. But then I think that there are people out there that have done it really well. Sometimes their product blows up. They didn't do it well. Their product did it for them. And that's totally valid. That happens all the time. But then there's others like Patrick Leader at Leader Games. I think he's a combination of both. His product was amazing. It's fantastic, right? It's hits every checkbox, right? The art's fantastic. The gameplay's fantastic. The value in the box is fantastic. Everything's great. But Patrick also did a really, really, really good job of marketing his brand and building an audience for himself. Kickstarter didn't do that for him.
That's true.
Kickstarter was the platform that he happened to do it on. So
okay.
That's my take.
And then my last thing, because I don't know if you've been involved in this, but I'm sure you've seen companies who do. Yep. What are your thoughts about using it as a sales platform? And what I mean by that is you already have the product, but you're just using it, like you said, because you're reaching a different audience, blah, 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 as opposed for the spirit. And again, I could be wrong with the spirit. I don't know what it was designed for, of somebody, trying to get funded to realize their dream.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's invalid because, it could be somebody that had the means to make the thing, but don't have the means to reach an audience. So
that's true. Yeah.
So you're using it to reach an audience, which is part of the intent of Kickstarter. I will say this, as gamers, no, they're not breaking any rules. Like the platform doesn't have a rule against it. So
no, I know. This is all just like, yeah.
No, I know. It's just kind of funny, like, because ultimately, Kickstarter's a business, and if this wasn't consistent with their vision, they would shut it down. They have shut down things. There's people that have gone crazy and run a lot of campaigns before they've even delivered some or many, right? And Kickstarter stepped in and said, no, you're going too far. Pull it back. Let's, and so I mean, they do police their platform. They're never going to make everybody happy. I actually agree with you. Like I don't want the little guy to get crushed, and to all those customers on Kickstarter to not see the small cool little thing, because that's where innovation comes from, and it does level the playing field. And I do want the guy that has a dream, guy or gal that has a dream to have their thing made, to get their thing made. But I don't think, I think counting on Kickstarter to get people to find your thing is a mistake.
Right.
It's not their job to market your game.
Right.
So,
and I'm sorry, we're going a little bit long, but I hope you don't mind if I have just one question, sort of piggyback along this too,
yep.
because again, you are just a great resource. If you could sell me or tell me as Tim the designer why it's either better or not better, or what you can offer me, why it, and where does the money come out? I got a whole bunch of things, as opposed to going for having you do my game or me trying to do it on Kickstarter.
Okay.
I don't know if you have direct experience, but can you maybe sell me or tell the audience where they may make out better or worse with you, or you know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, for sure. So, there's no right answer. I think it needs to fit. It needs to fit the person. I tell designers this all the time. If you want to become a publisher, that's a totally different skill set, and you're going to spend your time, your limited time, very differently. And that might be great. Like you might want to do it, and you probably should if that's something you're really passionate about and you think that you're going to be good at. But if you just want to design games, being a publisher might not be the best use of your time, because you're gonna design less games. I just guarantee it. It takes time to do all the other stuff. So that's one piece of it. Financially, yeah. Hey, if your game blows up and becomes the #1 game in the industry, you are going to make way more money if you did it yourself than if you did it through any publisher. The number of games that do that are how many? One?
Yeah, I know that's
right. Like how many times a year does that happen? It doesn't even happen once a year. Mm-hmm. So, but that doesn't mean if you really think that your thing is the next Gloomhaven, go for it. Like, don't let me talk you out of it. I never try to talk anybody out of it. I tell them what we can offer, and we work collaboratively. If you want to be, join the team and work with us to make your game a reality, and we believe in it, like, let's do it. If you want to do it a different way, that's fine. There's so many independent creators I've introduced to factories and helped and answer their questions, and it's all good. There's plenty of games to make. It's fine.
There really are. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the extra time.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. But before we go, if you don't mind, please, I'd like you to go ahead and take a minute or two, and I'd like you to let people know what Renegade Games has coming up, and also, again, maybe for people who are just watching for the first time, tell them about your core products, like what everybody knows you for, and what you have upcoming in the future.
Okay, so we have a lot, and I'm not gonna hit everything, but I'll hit some of the big announcements that we made recently. So a couple things. We just announced recently that we are partnering with World of Darkness Paradox Entertainment, and we are going to be the new publishing partner for all of the World of Darkness role-playing games moving forward. We are also launching next month the Rivals expandable card game for Vampire the Masquerade. We also just announced an expansion to our Hasbro relationship. We started off with Power Rangers, but we have tabletop games coming, tabletop games, deck building games, and role-playing games for Transformers, G.I. Joe, and down the road a little further, My Little Pony. Lots of really cool stuff. And I will even spoil one thing. This is where I get in trouble with Sarah. But I had mentioned that the original game that started Renegade that I took with me was Gravwell. Gravwell 2nd edition is coming out next year. Lots of new gameplay, new player count, lots of new content. It hasn't been announced yet. Sarah is going to send me a nasty text. But, but man, I put my marketing hat on. It's a nice bookend to this whole thing. So
it is. And let me just interrupt you real quick. I'm really sorry. So, folks, Gravwell, it doesn't get. It's one of those kind of games. Like, if you ever had your top 10 list of games that why don't more people know about, Gravwell is on that list. Yeah. It's such a good game that doesn't just get enough notice. So maybe that's Sarah's fault. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But it's so wow. Thank you for announcing that, and it's happy to get a second edition because Gravwell is a fantastic game. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going, Scott.
No, it's okay. No, that's it. We have so much going on. There's lots of really cool stuff coming out. Go to renegadegames.com. Check out our Facebook page. We have lots of specialized groups depending on what your interest is in: solo games, role-playing games, Clank group, Power Rangers group. Check us out. We're all over the place. And I don't know. We make really fun games, and I'm pretty sure we probably make a game that you'll like. So
yes, absolutely. The Renegade catalog is fantastic. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking this time for spending us today. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Well, there you go, folks. As you saw, we have Scott Gaeta with us, who is the president, publisher, and founder of Renegade Game Studio, literally one of the largest, biggest game companies in the board gaming industry. And as you can see, what he just told you, they are actually expanding even more, getting into a lot of the IPs he talked about, card games, board games, but they have a tremendous catalog of games, and they're a well-established, very good company. So if you have a chance, please check out any title in the Renegade Games Studio line. Well, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Meepleville Meets. We'll see you soon.